Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. The first thing on our agenda is to approve our minutes from November 7th. I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed those well-written minutes and find them to be in order. Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Any further discussion? Hear none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second thing on our agenda is public comments. There were no requests for public comments tonight, which will move us on to our investment report.
Yeah, Beatty, Rutherford County Trustee. Kind of a calm month. Rates are down just a little. Our bank rate is at 427.5, and the LGIP rate dropped 20 basis points to 474 for last month, and then the rate we have on a money market is still at 496. And what the market is kind of offering us today, and we're taking advantage of some, is in the mid fours, from 433 to about 451, and in there we're investing some out just in anticipation that the market will probably drop some more and just spread our risk a little bit. That's my report, sir.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the report signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the fund condition report. Michael.
Good evening. So, short answer of my report is we are where we should be for revenue at this time of year. I do want to point out a couple of things, though, some good news and some bad news. So just like we expected, development tax, it's on the first page of your revenue report. Adequate facilities tax and development tax is down a little over 11% as compared to last year. Now, we did expect that, so we budgeted in accordance with that. And that's due, we had that kind of rush to pay before the change in rates. So we were up for the first part of the year, and then now this month we're negative as compared with last year, but that was kind of expected. So that's kind of the bad news, but it was expected bad news. The good news is the county side of sales tax collection is doing good for this time of year. It's a little over 5%, and so that's some good news. And then our property tax collections are in line with where they should be at this time of year. So with that, that's my report.
Other questions? Have a motion to approve. Second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is our risk management financial report.
Good evening. Ed Elam with Insurance and Risk Management. So in your 264 fund, revenue less expenditures, you'll see the revenue for the calendar year 2024, $1,796,136. Expenses, $1,746,016. Revenue less expenditures, a positive $50,120. For the 2024 calendar year, revenue is $21,023,336. Expenses, $21,049,015. Revenue less expenditures is a negative $25,679. For the fiscal year 24-25 totals, for revenue you have $9,423,877. Expenditures $10,413,558. Revenue less expenditures, a difference of a negative $989,682. On the workers' comp OJI report, Workers' comp, you have for the month of November, $879,036. OJI, $101,715.58. Workers' comp for the year to date, $5,336.49. OJI, $431,267.50, for a total of $436,603.99. And the county attorney expense for the month of November, $35,591.68. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion. Second. Any further questions for Mr. Elo? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Have a good evening. And stay warm.
Item number 6, general fund budget amendment and transfer for PAWS.
Good evening, Michael Gregory with Rutherford County PAWS. We're asking to recognize revenue and expenditures for the Animal Friendly Grant from the state of Tennessee, to recognize that money and put that into drugs and medical supplies for spay and neuter surgeries, and then ask you to move $12,700 within our budget, mainly for building repair and maintenance due to some HVAC repairs that we had early in the year, and just trying to shore that account up to try to get us to the end of the budget year.
Heard the request from the director. Any questions? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Next is the highway fund budget amendments and transfers.
Evening. Greg Brooks, I'm the road superintendent. This is Miss Mary Hickerson. She's my department coordinator. And I have a few budget amendments for you tonight. I have them like you have them. The first one is to a decrease in our foreman line item and an increase in our equipment operators line item, and longevity pay an increase. And this takes care of some movement of employees from foreman for the foreman position. All of the related along with that. Do we want to do these one at a time?
Well, I was fixing to ask the committee. We've got several, and as you get on through, there's a couple pretty large amounts. But you want them together? Okay, Commissioner Johnson, who's on the road board, sits together.
Formally.
Oh, okay, okay. At any rate, we'll take these as one unless somebody has to pull one off. But please continue.
Okay. So that's the first one. The second one is for recalculation of our retirement fund. We figured it at 11.11, and it was actually 11.86. So it's a decrease assigned for Highway Public Works of $60,370, and committed for Highway and Public Works a decrease of $7,045, an increase of $6,000 into retirement, 131, 61,204 retirement of $6,835, and also into 131, 62,204, 45,885, And then 131.63, 100, 204 retirement, 7,650, and 65,204, 7,045. That just basically is just a recalculation from 11.11% to 11.86% for the retirement. Okay, next we have a grant that we've been working on for quite some time. It's for a flood study, and this is a brick grant, and it is a match of 25%, I believe, 75-25. So we're going to decrease our $31,034,650 by $15,000.
Committee, that's the last page. That's
It's going to be on the very,
page number 5 that he's talking about right now.
theirs is going to be on the very end, the one you're talking about right now.
You can continue.
Oh, okay,
We're
okay.
good.
I'm sorry. So you want to move on to
No,
the
keep
other?
going, Brad, just letting the committee know.
Okay. So this is a brick grant, and it's for a flood study for some of the Old Nashville Highway area. And it's an opportunity for us to do a feasibility study on moving some water under the railroad tracks and across Florence Road to the river. It would be very beneficial if it turns out that there is some feasibility. So this is to hire an engineering firm to do that study. And again, it's 75-25, 15,000 will come from our fund balance, and the other 45,000 will come through the federal and state brick grant. That brick grant that's building resilient infrastructure in communities, and it's a FEMA grant, actually, for hazard mitigation. Moving on. Michael, do they have the bridge next or
Yes.
the equipment?
The bridge.
Okay. All right, the next.
Before you do that, I want to correct, you'd said 11.86, but for the record, just for the minutes, it's going to be 11.88 is the retirement. And just for the record, I know the budget amendment says the county commission approved it. That number was set as a minimum amount by the state to pay. So we didn't, it's not like we just chose to pay extra. That was the minimum amount set by the state.
788?
Yes, 11.88.
Ready? So the next thing you have here is a decrease in the Highway Department fund balance of, which is the 131-34-750 account line item of $325,000, and an increase to the 131-68,705 for that same $325,000, and this is for bridge replacement on Burks Hollow Road, currently underway.
If I can ask, what's the time frame on that? You said it's already started, but how long will the project be? Do you know?
If the weather will cooperate, my understanding was their plan was to actually pour the deck next week. So it could, by the first of the year, it could be reopened. So it's going pretty well. Don't want to jinx them or anything, but it's going pretty well. So that would take the 131-68,705 bridge from the 150,000 that we had in there, and it would adding that 325 would bring us to a total of 475,000 in the bridge construction line item. Then we have some new equipment. So we would also be getting this from our fund ending balance. It's $685,000 total decrease from 131-34-750 into 131-68,714, and that will pay for a new motor grader and 2 new bush hog tractors.
That's got all your amendments that are
Correct.
listed, the ones I've got listed. Question, Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, is it fair to say that basically all of these are within your budget already? And basically, when it says ending fund balance, that's really the highway group's.
My savings account.
Yeah, I figured. I just want to make sure that there's no new money in the sense of, county-wide fund balance.
From the general fund, no, sir.
Right, nothing, okay. This is all within the highway department. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion or questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Yeah. Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes?
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all, and hope you have a nice holiday.
Item 8, body-worn camera grant and related general fund budget amendments.
Good evening. I'm Steve Spence, the Deputy Chief at the Sheriff's Office. This amendment is to recognize revenue and expenses for the new financial year 24 Office of Justice Program and Bureau of Justice Assistance grant. It is for the enhancement of the Sheriff's Office body-worn camera equipment and related services. This award will be used to purchase 219 body-worn cameras. It is a 3-year award with a 50-50 match. Full 3-year grant is $291,853 with a county match of $291,853. The period of performance is October the 1st, 24 through September the 30th for 27. This amendment is just for the year one, requesting to accept the $202,063 and $202,063 from the unassigned fund balance, placing $300,736 into our data processing equipment line item and $103,390 into our data processing service line item.
Heard the request. Any questions for?
Okay, so it's 291, the match is 291 and the 202. What percentage? I mean, I was trying to match those up. So
50%.
Okay. That would be 404. What am I missing here?
Are you looking at the budget amendment in front of your iPad?
Yep.
So the budget amendment has funding, and it has two parts of the funding. So you have to add the 202,063 together, and that it's 404.
Right.
And then there's,
Michael, I think the question is, that's just the amount of money, the 202 is what we need in this first year.
yes,
We'll get 291 total on the grant, but 202 is just what we've calculated for this fiscal year only.
Okay, it's a 3-year.
Yes,
we're going to
3
spend the
year.
money, more money up front in the first year
Right,
than we will
because
in
your
the second
purchase
two.
of the cameras up
Got
front.
it. Okay, I appreciate it. So it's just an upfront.
Yep.
More upfront. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And it'll roll too. You'll notice we'll have a cleanup budget amendment every year for a lot of the sheriff's office grants. So like if we only spent $195,000, that'll roll. You'll see an amendment next year for the remaining portion.
And what kind of coverage does this give us for body cams?
If it's approved, it gives us 344 body-worn cameras total. Mainly these are going to detention. We've got cameras back there, but there's a lot of blind spots, no audio. This is going to protect us on complaints, help the men and women working back here to have some coverage to record what goes on, interaction with inmates.
Will this provide all of them that you need?
It'll last. We'll need one more division, and we're going to plan on doing that next year, and it'll be the SROs.
All right. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve and a second. Commissioner Johnson, any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next is the 2025 Hazardous Material Emergency Preparedness Grant and related general fund budget amendments. Welcome.
Good evening, Tim Hooker, Office of Emergency Management. I've got a little explaining to do with this one. First off, you may remember a while back we came to you to ask permission to apply for this grant. That was granted. We applied for it. We received paperwork back on it, but we do not have a signed contract back. What we got was a memo from the state, and as far as TEMA and FEMA go, when we receive a memo, this means that the grant has been officially awarded, although we do not have the contract in hand. The state has a backlog on contracts being issued at this juncture. Our issue is that we have to have the money spent in January, and we could get the contract next week. We could get the contract in the end of January. So we don't know when this paperwork is going to come through, because we know we need a signature on that to be able to run the funding. But it's coming up quick, and we need that funding available to spend in January. This has to do with the HMEP grant. You may remember we did the same thing last year. We sent 2 firefighters from each local jurisdiction to some comprehensive, very in-depth hazardous materials training. We got very, very positive, good feedback from the firefighters that went to this and explained that this is some of the best training we've had comprehensively across the board anywhere, and we wanted to continue this program and availability. So we're asking that a total of $22,500 be accepted, and perhaps to push it through, because as we know, it requires another going through the committee before the mayor can sign the contract when it comes in. If we could bypass that with an amendment to have the mayor sign the paperwork the second it comes in and then send it back to the state, that would speed the process up if that's possible.
Okay, you've heard the request. First of all, it would be accepting the grant money, and we've got a match.
$4,500, and the total project is $18,000, so for a total of $22,500.
So he's also requesting that the mayor be able to approve this and send it on full commission for approval late next Thursday.
Get the contract back by then. That's the issue. We don't know when we're going to get the contract back.
But when we do get it back, we would like for this to be contingent.
This is 80-20 grant, right? 80%, 20%.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Serena. Further discussion. Or I don't know how we need to word that specifically to get that through. Help me with that.
We'll figure it out. Yep.
I think we all have the same intent, though, as soon as he gets his paperwork, for it to be approved, and it'll go before the commission next Thursday.
We can write the resolution to, like we normally do some of these, where it'll approve the budget amendment, and should this grant be awarded and contract awarded, the mayor and any parties can sign that need to be.
Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Tim. Item 10, funds for Singer Road Property Geo Studies. Eric?
Eric Hennessy, Chief of Staff. Property Management has been looking at the Singer Road property and the possibility of selling that property and through the Chamber of Commerce. And part of what they were asking us to do was figure out, well, the Chamber of Commerce was asking us to do certain items, surveys, environmentals, and an appraisal, geotechnical study. And so at the last property management meeting, they passed a resolution to send this forward to budget to see about approving up to $30,000 to pay for these particular services that will help the marketability of Singer Road. This would come out of the unassigned fund balance.
This passed unanimously at Property Management. Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. Second. Have a second. Any discussion?
Yes. A few years back, we were going to use that property for a location to build a shop for our waste management service. Was the geo testing not done at that time?
There was some, I think an environmental phase 1 was completed at that time. However, that has been so long ago that it is not usable at this time anymore. That's what the chamber is telling us.
Looks like if it was done, it would still be on paper and still stand. It's been vacant land ever since, has it not? That's what I thought.
Good question. Don't know who could answer that for us, whether it should. This could pass contingent upon us finding that out, but that's up to motion makers. Question I've got, has property management made the decision that they want to sell this property?
I think there's probably a little divergence of opinion, but ultimately that'll be made by the commission, obviously. But I think the sense is we need additional data so we can come up with a price and make some additional assessments on it. So to answer your question, I'm not sure a final decision's been made. I think it's clear that additional data is needed beyond that, and that's what this does.
Was it told you that we needed that additional, the chamber?
Yes.
Who specifically?
At one meeting, we had Paul Latour and Patrick Kamak both. At the last meeting, we had Patrick Kamak.
I don't have any more questions. Any more from the committee? Got a motion and a second. Michael, go ahead.
So 2 things from us. We were forwarded 2 different amounts from property management that we got on our forwarding sheet. So if you could clarify the amount for us. And 2, if you want it to come out of unassigned fund balance, my recommendation for the expense side of this is probably going to be the mayor's $51,300, $399 other contracted services for a budget amendment to go with this, if this committee wishes to go ahead and fund that. But if you could clarify the dollar amount for us.
What was approved at property management was up to $30,000, to spend up to $30,000.
But if the person that made the motion and the second, if they were amendable to that,
Mr. Irvin.
Motion is up to 30,000.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I'm sorry, what fund is it coming from again?
County General Fund, it'll be in the mayor's budget, $51,300, $399 other contracted services.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, call roll.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
No.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next is item 11 and 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Brian will be covering for us.
Byron Cumbie, Rutherford County Health Department. So we have a few items for you tonight. Hopefully these align with the agenda and align with your iPad there. The first is our annual co-op agreement between the county and the state. This is the agreement that we bring you every year that outlines the state and county's participation in delivery of health services in Rutherford County. And we have had Finance Director Smith review it for accuracy, and he has updated that with the current figures.
By the way, this is already funded, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
That's correct. It's already as part of the budget that was approved for FY25.
motion on that, unless you've got more questions or.
This is just basically a recurring event, correct?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Commissioner Sereno. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, item.
Item, I believe it is the budget amendment to move 7,500 in grant funds for a video interpreting service to the 599 account. And that's so we can utilize those accounts, those funds. It's a no-match fund. This is an iPad-based video language interpreter service that we will use in our health departments to expand our services for our patients.
Heard the request. Any questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, sir. So item 3, we have a memorandum of understanding that the Commissioner of Health has requested be signed by every county. This is to confirm that the ARP funding that has already been approved by this commission in 2022 is still obligated and does not roll back to the federal government at the end of this year. This was sent out, like I said, to all 95 counties. It has been reviewed by the county attorney and the mayor's staff, chief of staff, and Director Smith, who assures us that that money is set aside and allocated in the budget.
Discussion. Basically, they're wanting to make sure we can't spend that money away from that on something else.
Motion to approve the understanding.
Motion. Second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, next one.
All right. Item 4 is a contract amendment. This is something that tends to occur with us every year, that we have to align the state grant contract with funding for raises that were received after the contract was initially approved. So I've worked with Director Smith. He has related to me that this has no impact on the county budget, as he did anticipate and account for these changes in advance.
Okay, you've heard the request. Other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved to approve.
I have a motion, and I think I heard somebody down here a second. Any further questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries, and this final one will be item 15 on our agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Finally, we have an amendment to a grant contract. This was a no-match grant contract in the amount of $340,500. It's a separate pot of money from COVID funding, and it was set to expire this July, but instead it's going to extend that expiration date to July of 2026.
Okay, you've heard the request. Questions for the director?
Is this basically a housekeeping measure?
It is.
This item is already included in the budget. We anticipated this grant getting extended, so it is already in the budget. You're just extending the grant.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner B?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next on the agenda is item 16, application for 2024 FEMA assistance to firefighter grants.
Good evening. I'm here requesting approval to apply for a 2024 FEMA.
Second, please introduce yourself.
Larry Farley, Rutherford County Fire Rescue Department. I'm here requesting approval to apply for the 2024 FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant for $1.5 million. And the amount comes with a 10% match required. If the grant is received, it will be used to send 18 firefighters to paramedic school, as well as purchase 10 cardiac monitors for the fire paramedics to use on shift. This grant will be used to pay for the cost of the class and for their overtime pay while they attend their clinicals. That's $56,000 each. Cardiac monitor times 10 is $560,000, and the class plus overtime and class fees is $52,000 per student, including overtime times 18 students is $940,000.
Questions for Farley?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Second. Questions? I've got a couple. I had minutes there. Only firefighters, they are approved. Will they be doing this training while they're on shift?
No, sir. They'll be in class, but we have to pay them overtime while they're going through their clinicals. Cover all that.
So they'll be paid. They be paid an amount out of this grant specifically. Are you going to cover the cost of the class?
It covers the cost of the class, plus once they go through class, they have to ride an ambulance for so many hours to get their clinicals, and that will pay for the overtime while they're doing that.
Well, the reason I was asking is, my understanding is that would be, this grant was meant to be a recruitment item. That's what I'm getting at. And you're basically saying this would be for existing firefighters, not for, you wouldn't be using that to recruit new firefighters. They're basically going to get their salary plus
The class is $52,000. That would include the class fees plus what overtime they use. I don't remember exactly what the hours are, but it's a lot of hours to obtain that paramedic certification.
other questions from the committee. Here none, we have a motion and a second. Call roll.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinigo?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Item 17, juvenile detention contracts with various counties.
Good evening, Lynn Duke, Juvenile Detention. In front of you tonight, you have two contracts. One is for Humphreys County. The second is for Macon County. These are the exact same contracts that you've been seeing over the last several months. It involves an updated daily rate and some new language that the county attorney and the Juvenile Detention Board approved, but same as the other county contracts that you've recently seen. And beyond that, if you have any questions, I'll happily answer them. We sent out a request to all of our existing counties that we contracted with, as well as we sent out contracts to counties that we had reached out to before to see if they had changed and wanted to consider contracting at this time. they're sort of trickling in, but I believe there may be one more round, but as I say, they're just trickling in because each county is like, obviously like Rutherford, and they have several boards and committees that they have to go in front of. So instead of trying to wait to get the new rate for all of them that may come in, we decided just to bring them in groups as they came to us through the mail.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Johnson.
Are there two new contracts?
We contracted with these counties before, but this is an updated contract as far as how much the daily rate for detention beds was. So it's a new contract, but previously, counties we had previously done business with.
Of course, this may be like asking how high is up, but do you anticipate any problem with this additional?
No, sir.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion. And a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to Michael here for item 18, the 2025-26 budget calendar and schedule.
So no, y'all couldn't wait to get started on next year's budget. So as required, every December at our December meeting, we present the budget calendar for both the full budget calendar and the budget committee meeting schedule. As in years past, a lot of these dates, we have a struggle moving them, fitting them in with the dates required by the Private Act. We have shared this, I have shared this with the school system so that they can align their school board meetings with this. A couple things to note, as in the last 2 years, we have on here a joint health and ed and budget committee meeting that seems to have went well the last 2 years. It makes it where everybody can ask their questions all at one time for the schools. And most of the dates towards the end are kind of set by the Private Act. And then as normal on Monday, June 23rd, the Monday of that last week, we've got it set for the full commission to vote on the tax rate and appropriations resolution. So I can take any questions about this if you want, but most of them are, we didn't pick the dates for personal reasons. We picked them kind of based on the Private Act and the deadlines.
One thing I will mention, we'll have a joint budget and health and ed meeting, again, just like we did this last year. Kind of crunch for space again.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, so we do. It'll
Oh, do we?
It'll go on and get approved by commission, yes.
Had a chance to look at that. I'll entertain a motion when y'all are ready.
This is basically generic like we always go through. Motion to approve.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, 2 seconds down there. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next is the Sand Hill Convenience Center lease. All that Tuesday night.
Eric Hennessy, Chief of Staff. This is a one-year lease with the city of Laverne to lease the current convenience center that we have in Laverne on Sand Hill Road. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
So, am I reading this wrong? It's 1 year?
Yes, sir.
So what happens after 1 year?
So Laverne is, they need that property that we are currently leasing, and so they would like that property back. I don't believe that they would kick us off right at 1 year. If we needed a few months to get moved or whatever, they would probably help us with that. But they are needing the property to expand their own municipal facilities.
Have we already done work out there as far as like site work or any of that?
No, sir. This Sand Hill location has been there probably since the 90s or 80s or something to that effect. It's been there for a long time. So we're not doing any work at this site. Everything that is there is going to stay there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We had this forwarded from Public Works because it had the $1 per year. Felt like it should come to budget, so that's why we've got it. I will entertain a motion.
I've got a question first. You said everything that was there would stay there. The equipment leaves when we leave?
Yes, sir, and that is spelled out in the lease.
Okay. Now I've got a question for Michael. Where will this huge amount be funded from?
Pocket. Can you go ahead and give it to us right now?
Eric has volunteered to give us $1.
Need to, I'll do it.
That or, Commissioner Gooch, I can short his commission check next month $1.
That'll be fine.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion.
Can I deduct that dollar from my taxes on charity? Okay.
Is that a second? Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve the Sand Hill Convenience Center lease. Well, that's got a dollar amount. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner Srinio,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, and if I don't see you again, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Eric. All right, item 20, Rutherford Opioid Board recommendations.
And we've got kind of 4 things to take. I think we can take them all together if the committee wishes. There's 3 contracts. In prior months, you all have approved the budget amendment for these contracts, but they're advertising contracts. One's with Lamar, the billboard. One's with Smart Light, and one's with Social Indoor. We've had all these 3 contracts before, so these are just new contracts with new dates with them. Of course, funded through the opioid money that we have set aside for those. And then also the opioid committee this past week funded some items for the sheriff's office and for Kamari House. They approved a little over $135,000 for the sheriff's office to purchase a mass spectrometer, and $47,634 for Kamari House.
Any questions? We've got a couple people sit on that board and happily answer them for you, as well as the sheriff's department. I have a motion. I have not.
Yes, Commissioner Piercy.
Oh,
Commissioner
okay, I
Piercy.
didn't hear it.
Yep,
Sorry.
we're good.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Piercy.
Yes.
Commissioner Srinio, Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner Irvin.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. I'll just mention one of the items on there that actually do over somebody. You've got a substance, you don't know what it is, you can actually substance is. We'll be using that. Under other business,
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I am wanting to open up for discussion and possible motion. We are proposing, some of commissioners, we are proposing to give a 4% pay raise to our county employees, all of them, mid-year for January 25. And we're doing this because we're having problems right now with recruitment and retention. So we're addressing that problem. The money that would be paying for this is coming through revenue that was over our projections. So we're not taking anything out of the in-funding balance. We're not raising taxes. We're not doing any of that. We're basically giving them a pay raise 6 months in advance to help with the market gap that we have right now. I'll be more than glad to turn it over to Michael and let him explain this. I also want Sonia to come up. And what we're doing is, when it comes to the budget year next year, we will be able to look at other things. We have a marketed study that will be coming out in March, and we'll be able to address if we're able to give any other raises in the for 2025, 2026. But this right now, this is going to help us with the problem that we are experiencing right now, which is retention and recruiting. So I'll let Michael explain to this so y'all understand better as far as how we're funding this. And then, Chairman, whatever you had to say.
Michael, you please go.
So I'll give a little backstory on this. I've been asked by several commissioners to, they've come to me with a kind of a problem with the pay. They've asked several options, and kind of as I stated at Public Safety, I believe that was last week or the week before last, we do have options. And so some options are good, some options are bad, but we have options. And so one of the things that I was asked is how much would this raise cost and what are our options to fund it. So one of the options that kind of I presented and offered that Commissioner Harris is referring to is this year we have some one-time money that we did not budget for. We budgeted conservatively knowing that wouldn't be there in the future. Now, obviously, we don't want to spend one-time money on reoccurring raises. That's not a smart thing for the county. And so one of the things we could do is use that one-time money for this 6 months, but as you know, every year property tax grows. So property tax grows historically for us 3 to 4%. Just to give you some perspective, last year we had an additional little over $4 million in the county general fund for property tax as far as year over year. And so kind of one of the ways to look at this as an option would be that you're essentially, pre-spending some of that money, so you could use some one-time money for this 6 months for January to June, and then the reoccurring revenue of property tax would pick it up starting July 1. So really you're giving kind of a raise 6 months in advance to the employees is kind of way to look at it, so to hopefully not impact fund balance at all. So that's kind of, I think, the plan that Commissioner Harris is proposing there, and so the goal would be not to touch fund balance. I'll mention two things. One, if my understanding is correct, this would be across the board. Is that correct, Commissioner Harris? Across the board for every employee is the
employee. And also, I misspoke as well too. I'm not saying if we don't have raises coming up in 25, 26. This is just us helping to address a problem that we have now. So I know some people in there like, oh, this is all we're going to get. We're not saying that at all. We're trying to help a problem now. So it is not an if at all.
Well,
I'll add one thing. I do have a sheet if the committee would like for me to pass it out. I brought it. I didn't know if anybody would want it. I do have a sheet with the dollar amount on it for the committee. If they would like, I can read that dollar amount if you'd like. Just let me know.
Recognize.
Thank you. A few questions. So this is what available?
Investment income would be the first thought to my mind.
Okay, and so that kind of begs the question, how much is in, I presume, fund balance for investment income? And then, it almost sounds like we are borrowing against, we're basically taking 4% now against future revenue growth. Is that, except for this one-time amount? And I haven't seen any analysis on what the one-time number is or what the growth number is. I mean, we're shooting in the dark here. Without some kind of data to say this is how much we have available and this is how much we're going to spend of that one time. This is how much it's going to grow, we expect already, and this is how much. So I'm trying to do a reasonable assessment, and I don't have anything in front of me to say these are the numbers. I don't even know how much 4% is, candidly. I mean, it's like, it's not, I'll back up and say, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea, but at this point, we don't have any data to support a request for 4% or any number, candidly. I mean, we haven't seen any kind of a salary study. We haven't seen any kind of, or at least I have not, and they may be available, but we haven't seen any kind of a salary study. We haven't seen, you know, what the balance in the one-time account is. I hear what you're saying about investment, but that investment account, I believe, is declining based on interest rates, or at least might be leveling off to a downward trend. So I need a little more analysis. Would any, well, I'll just toss that out there for kind of initial discussion, because at this point, we don't have any data other than 4%. I'm not saying there's not a issue that needs to be addressed, or not necessarily even opposed to it. But at this point, I don't know how much it is.
Michael just
the need
mentioned
hasn't been proven.
He's got a sheet that will actually give you what the 4% is, and also other percentages. And there was a proposal at Public Safety. I asked him to actually put on this paper some of the numbers that were have been thrown out there by other commissioners. Go ahead and pass that out, Michael. And
yeah,
that'll give us a starting place.
I've seen the numbers.
Well, just kind of give you some background here. Some of the other agencies that surround us are giving raises, and of course it's competitive. We're competing against each other, unfortunately, for a lot of these employees. And this is kind of, not to take anything away from what Chairman Harris is saying, but I feel like it's kind of a way to keep us competitive, is what the idea is, and to help our employees and to help our department's head recruit and retain people. That's the purpose of it. Now, as far as the hard numbers that you're asking for, you know, the sheet that you've got will give you, you know, what the actual dollars amount would be for a 4% raise, a 14% raise, you know, 1%, and what it would be a penny on the tax rate for those numbers. Anyway, that's the sheet that you've just got.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm trying to also kind of get, you know, the threshold question is, okay, other than anecdotally, has there been a study done to say, this is where we are in terms of salary, this is where we are in terms of the total package, pensions, other benefits, you know, health insurance, because that would have been helpful to hand out before the meeting. I mean, with respect, I'm just trying to, that's something that to show the basis for, hey, we're not competitive because, you know, our base pay, our pension contribution, our other amounts are not in line. The cost of living in the relevant jurisdictions, there's a whole host of analyses that it seems premature at this point to just jump on a 4%, what appears to be base salary number, or is this a fully loaded number?
You can.
That number is everything to increase the fund. That's going to be pension, Social Security, Medicare. That's everything. So the number on your sheet is for a full year, and I'll describe kind of what I just handed out here. And so we're looking at across the board. I was asked to provide some figures. I just kind of gave a range based on I had several requests from different commissioners for different amounts. And so I just went from 1 to 5 because those were pretty consistent right there to see what we wanted. I did 10 because it was a nice round number. In my OCD, I had to do a round number of 10. I was asked to do 12 because I think there was a presentation at Public Safety that asked for 4 and 8, which would have been 12. I did 14% at the request of another commissioner, and those are all going to be for a full year. And so that, if we would have raised our pay table by one of those percentages on July 1 of 2025, that is the amount that we would have increased those budgets by. If you remember, we raised, I think right before commission, right in June last year, we raised 1% to that table. This is calculated the same way, so this will be pension, everything included, every employee across the county. Is how that would be. Now, if you needed 6 months worth, obviously just half that data. And then two other things. I think you asked two questions, and I just want to be sure I answer them while I've got it pulled up right here. You asked about investment income, and so I'll give you a little facts. So in FY 2023, we had about $9.1 million in investment income. We did not budget near that amount because we knew that would come down. In FY '24, we got almost $16 million in investment income, but original budget was 4.6. So we were very conservative there, knowing that interest rates are coming down as they continue to be. This year we budgeted 4.6 again, knowing interest rates are come down, and they have, but we have already received $6 million in investment income as of today. We're going to definitely go past the 4.6. So that was the first option off the top of my head for if you needed something to fund for the 6 months. So we'll definitely have enough for that if that's what this commission or body would wish. And then the other thing is talking about property tax growth. And so I charted the growth of the property tax of the penny dating back to 2010. And on average, if you pull out the reappraisal years, dating back to 2016, if you leave in the reappraisal years, property tax grew at 11%. But if you throw out the reappraisal years, it would be 3.86% of growth.
One other thing I want to mention, you mentioned there hadn't been a study done. Tanya, you can correct me if I speak, but when we did what we did last year as far as raises and we looked at study, I think we came in overall, and this is average, this is not any specific group, around 3% under the group comparing ourselves to, our basically other municipalities. I hadn't got that right. Sonia, if you want to come up, I can ask her that question, but I'm basically trying to say that we looked at a study last year, and we're actually a little bit behind. Sonia, if you want to.
Thank you. Good evening. So we did a salary survey, and one of the things I have to tell you about a survey is when you do that, you're basically a year behind when you do it, because they're taking the information where you are currently to determine where you are currently versus them. And so any of the entities who gave increases after our budget cycle or during their budget cycle automatically makes this behind basically 2 years at this point. But when we did the survey, after I plugged in the number with, after the survey was completed and we did our adjustments, our lift to the table, we're still about 6% behind. And that was from data from 2 years ago as an overall average. So we're still about 6%, so you were close, but 6% behind overall. And so this additional 4% would get us closer to where the survey said we needed to be for our positions. But then, our new survey should be coming in hopefully the end of the 1st of January, sometime the 1st of January. But based on last year's survey, we are still behind even after the lift in the pay increases last year. So I think that was your question.
So the new or updated salary study that comes in January, that data can be used for the next year's budget information?
Yes, sir.
And so my understanding, just to clarify, if we did 4%, it says 4.4 million. So half of that, then we're looking at from January to throughout June would be 2.2 million. Okay, and then if we were to pick up, say, another penny or another percent, 5% total, then that we're looking at almost 5.5 million extra. Thank you.
think you're one column off, I believe.
Chairman P,
You're recognized. I'm sorry.
got a question for Sonia when she comes back.
Sir? Yes, sir.
The study that has been done on salaries, is that hourly wage people or is it salary people?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Part-time, full-time, exempt, non-exempt, it's everybody.
Our greatest loss in employees is at what pay? Are we losing $100,000 a year people?
We don't have a lot of those, so.
But we do have some.
So, you know, that would be, we do have some, yeah, that wouldn't be our highest turnover point, no.
What is the highest turnover?
So I don't know that, I don't think I shouldn't say I don't think, I know that I haven't calculated the turnover rate based on salary, but I can look at the positions and tell you, I did bring the turnover stuff with me, just anticipating that might be a question. So, let me see.
While she's looking at that, one thing I want to mention is why we're seeing this now is if we are going to do a raise like this mid-year, we put this off, you're looking at February, maybe March, we go that far along, I'd say it's just as good to wait till June as far as the budget cycle goes. So if we're wanting to do something, I think it's something we would need to decide here if this is something we want to do, and if so, take it to the full commission and let them decide. That way, that would give Mark and Michael time to actually do this, because it doesn't just magically happen.
And I'll say I answer the question of public safety that we have options, and the answer is we do. But with us issuing, 10,000 W-2s in January and holidays and stuff, we're really limited on the amount of hours. It takes a lot of work to put this through. So that all being said, I think that's why you're seeing a limited number of options now versus, obviously. I put the pennies on there so y'all would know what that would be. I'm not advocating that we do that. I'm just trying to give options to where if you wanted to fund this a different way, that's always an option. But if you did want to pass something tonight, if you wanted to implement it in January, it would have to come at this meeting in December, I think is what the chairman's saying, which is true. And then we would prepare a budget amendment. The finance office would prepare a budget amendment to have it ready. I would say it would be ready the very first of next week. It's going to take us, we're going to have to hit you think of every department that we have, you're going to hit 6 to 8 lines per every department on that budget amendment. And so that's why we can't really have one tonight. We kind of got to know if you want to do something, we'll prepare that and have that available if that's what this committee would like.
Mr. Chairman, Sonia, I'm not sure what all you're looking at there, but the concern is for non-exempt employees in public safety. The other departments are maybe underfunded, but the ones that we're concerned about losing are the specialized employees that require special training that we're losing to other government entities in surrounding counties and or cities. So it's basically the public safety employees, police officers, sheriff's deputies, EMTs, emergency responders. Those are the ones that we're losing. We're training them and losing them. So that's really what this is all about. I think the question that Commissioner Piercy asked is what are we losing? And I think, Commissioner Piercy, from attending public safety meetings and other meetings, that's the concern, is that we're training and losing public safety employees almost as fast as we can hire them, even though we put some type of restriction on there, we're still losing those people. And they're mostly non-exempt employees that are somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 a year, somewhere around that. Is that accurate?
I was about to say, the range that you're looking for is between 45,000 and about 60,000, the employees in that range, and I've got it nailed down. I can tell you every employee that has left us this year and what department they are and how long they were in that department. The number one classification that we're losing the most of is detention officers, and that's across the board, whether it be in the jail, correctional work center, juvenile detention. Second would come in between, close second between patrol officers and our paramedics, and next would be our communications officers, and then followed up by PAWS. Those are the 5 top classifications. Our animal control officers would be the last, but number 1 would be your detention officers, 2 would be your patrols and paramedic ones. Next would be your communications officers, and which those are the ones that take the calls, and then followed by animal control officers. Those are our top 5 classifications for turnover in public safety.
Chairman Harris.
Yeah. Rutherford County is behind 10 to 15%, and we're losing employees every month. This is giving our employees an immediate raise to make us more competitive. That's it. The city of Murfreesboro is doing this same thing that we're doing right now. So what I want to do is I don't want to make our employees wait 6 months. And, you know, we can still keep a balanced budget. We can still not deal with the in-funding balance. And this is giving our people 6 months ahead to help them out. Wayne, we are 10 to 15% behind right now. We're losing people. And you don't want to take my word for it, and I understand, that's fine. Well, there's human resources, and she can answer that question. So I'm trying to help our employees by giving them 6 months. And then once we get to 25, 26, then we'll be able to see everything, because once the study comes out, we'll be able to know what more we can do. So that's where I'm at on this. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this.
I have a motion and a second. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Pierce.
Who was the second? I'm sorry. It's Commissioner Gooch. The second.
Oh. Recognized.
The reason I asked the questions that I asked, does this help our part-time employees at all?
Yes, sir. Because as of last year, we put all of our part-time employees on the pay table, just like our full-time employees. So every time a part-time person works 2,080 hours, they get a step, just like our full-time employees do. So we've put all them on the table so that they wouldn't be left out in the pay increases. And when we lift the table, they get the benefit of the lift because they're on the table.
If our major loss, you said, was between 45 and 50, is that what you said?
60.
60, 45, and 60. And this is across-the-board raise for everybody?
Well, the response was, I believe that Commissioner Phillips says that we're looking at public safety. And when I looked at public safety, the 5 top positions were those positions, and they range in the 45 to 60 range, 45, 55, somewhere around in that, based on the employees. So basing it on that group of people, you know, that's the range for that group. We're losing roll-off drivers at our solid waste department. We're losing employees in other departments. But when we're looking at public safety as a whole, the top 5 positions are the ones I gave you.
But the 4% raise that's being proposed is across the board for every employee, elected official, everybody?
Let me clarify. So that 4% is a lift to the table. But what I also did is I included all of the constitutional officers' employees, not the constitutional officers themselves. We can't do that. State law will not let us right now. But that includes their employees in that. So like Melissa Harrell's office, Melissa Harrell would not get it because she's constitutional officers, but she follows the county pay table. So that is included in the number I gave you. The people it does not include are the actual constitutional officers themselves. This does not include the highway because they're on their own. They do their own thing for pay plan. Schools do their own thing. So this would include part-time, full-time, everybody that's on the county pay table. This would be a 4% lift to the table.
That's excluding elected officials.
But now their people would get it. So like Melissa Harrell's, I'm just using that as an example because she's a large group of the circuit court clerk employees. They would get this because they're on the county pay table.
Doesn't include like our employees who have fee office employees? Does it?
Yes. So I included that unless they have chosen not to participate in the county's pay plan. They tend to do their own thing. Some years they give 10, some years they give 3. So very few of those that do that.
So we are basically focusing on public safety.
No, the goal, if I understand what Commissioner Harris has made the motion for, that it would be a 4% lift to the table, which would impact all employees. All employees, full-time, part-time, all employees.
My last question. Can we not focus this $4 million toward the people Mr. Phillips was talking about, our fire, our ambulance, our sheriff, our public safety people? Can we not focus that toward them in any way alone?
Unless you didn't do a lift to the table, because the way...
We're going to be a little... I'm going to speak a little bit for Sonia here. We're going to be a little limited because of the time of year it is and how fast we could get something implemented. So one of the issues we have, it's $4 million for a full year. So if you did something from July to June, the amendment's going to be about $2.2 million for across the board. But when we start looking at public safety, we run into an issue of who do you define as public safety? And by that I mean right now we have a law enforcement pay table, but that doesn't mean everybody at the sheriff's office is on it. We have certain people that are, certain people that aren't. And so we run the risk. We have to go, if we do that, we have to go individual by position and pick which table they're on. And then we'll have an issue where you'll have to be voting on individual positions on which table they're on, and we don't have enough time to do that. I think the plan that me and Sonia have discussed would be, if you wanted to do something, one of the options, about the only option we'd have is something across the board to do by January. That's pretty much our only option to do quickly. And then I think you could have Sonia and her staff look at focusing specific things in July. And sorry, Sonia, I'm speaking for you. But then you would have the time, Sonia would have the physical hours of the day to focus on the specific public safety, whether it's patrol, detention, wherever your greatest need was. You would have some creative things to do for them because you'd have 3 or 4 months to plan. But Sonia, correct me if I said anything wrong there.
No, that's right. You can do market analysis for specific positions. But when we do that, we have to touch everybody in that. And so, you know, with this, talking about public safety in general, public safety is probably, I think the last time we counted up is like 80% of the employee population to begin with, because the sheriff's office has, how many employees you have, Sheriff? So 660? 668. Okay, he's got 668. Ambulance service has, I don't know, 150. You know, you start looking at these big departments and you adding up to what our total count is, and I think on the last budget book it was, what, 1683, 1783, something like that, almost 1,800. So when you look at public safety as a whole, your ambulance, your fire, your sheriff's office, your animal control, all of those that are, you know, out there in public safety, you're looking at about 80% of the budget anyways. And so you're impacting that group with this. When it comes to unique positions, then that's where you do your market adjustments. And what that does is that you move them on the table to put them in a higher pay grade than they currently are, to give them that adjustment, to give the additional monies. And so that's where that comes in. If you choose, if this group decides to do that in the budget process, that's what, you know, we could do that.
I'm not against the 4% raise, but I've come up old school, and I always spent my money where I thought I had to spend it the worst. And I've sat on public safety for 4 years. They had shortages then of employees, couldn't get enough help, and they still can't. But it looks like maybe somewhere down the road we could focus on our problems with our money when we do have time to sit down and figure that out, and maybe that would help. Now, on our part-time people, 4%, they'll never realize they got it. I've had some of them tell me that already. It'll be so small because they're on a low hourly pay. You know, your $50,000 people, they'll realize it. But we need to help our part-time a lot more than 4% if you want to keep employees, like for your roll-off trucks, your convenience workers, your crossing guards. That's just my thoughts on this. It's I'm going to support it, but I'd like to see more done for the part-time employees and more focus put on the specifics people that we're losing and try to get them more money if there's any way possible. Thank you.
Commissioner, if I could, Mr. Chairman, the only way to do it right now is to give across the board and to focus on those that we're really concerned about, which are the ones that are highly skilled and highly trained. It appears that not only are we losing them, but we're having a hard time hiring them to start with. The way we focus on those is through an accurate information and data that deals with what those pay scales are in a survey situation, so we can address those differently as we get accurate information approaching next year's budget. So that's how we do that. And I really want some clarification here. I'm assuming that we're going to spend some money that we kind of have in reserve to pay for this immediate 4%. We're not.
So we're not going to use any reserve money for this. Or my recommendation would not be to use any reserve money. I'll put it that way. Of course, we'll implement whatever this committee wishes, but my recommendation would not be able to use reserves. My recommendation would be to offset this against some additional current year revenue. Like I said, it'd be about $2.2 million in total, spread across County General, Solid Waste, and Ambulance Service Fund. My recommendation would be to book it against some current year revenue and not to touch reserves for this year for that amendment, with the goal of then reoccurring revenue picking it up July 1. Now, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, so some political event could change the future, and I don't know, but that would be my recommendation as of today.
Okay, the 4% we're talking about right now, I just need to get this clear. Just like Commissioner Irvin has said a number of times, I need to understand, and I've heard that out of him I don't know how many times, so I'm just trying to understand. We give it right now. Where does that 4% go, and how does it affect the table come July 1st? We need to put that 4% somewhere July 1st. And I don't think it needs to affect what we've already got planned for the table coming July 1st, correct? So, somebody help me with that.
So if you were to pass this tonight and send it to commission, this would increase our current table today 4%.
Right.
So if starting July 1, this body or the commission wanted to do anything additional to the table, whether that's move grades on it, whether that's raise the table again, all of that would be on top of this 4%.
And that would be in non-reoccurring expenses, but be on reoccurring taxes.
All of this would be in part of reoccurring expenses. I'm saying reoccurring taxes would pick up to fund that reoccurring expense.
I'm not saying we raise taxes, but it has to be there, or in my mind, it won't work. Correct?
Or you would have to come up, that was just one revenue. I mean, obviously you take the general fund, we've got several large revenues in there that change from year to year, whether that be hotel motel tax, sales tax, property tax, bank excise tax, and so forth, right? I'm just was asked what are some options, and I look historically at trends, right, because we can never predict. I'm not 100% what's going to happen in the future. So that's why I went back and looked at the growth of the property tax rate, and it grows at between 3 and 4% every year historically over the last 10 years or so. Last year, that number happened to grow about $4 million just in property tax. And so obviously some other revenues grew because our budget grew more than $4 million last year. I'm just saying that's one option to pick up this reoccurring expense starting July 1. There may be more based on a number of factors that come into play, right? And so kind of like, for example, our debt service fund relies heavily on property tax, but I think the goal is to shift some of that burden over to the facilities tax because that was raised. So I'm just giving options, but this would be a reoccurring expense. Anything you give in July would be on top of this since we're raising the table, unless you wanted to reduce pay, which I don't think that's what you're wanting, but I'm just saying anything would be on top of this.
I just want for me to understand that this is in addition to what we will be planning for them for next year, because if we don't do anything next year, we'll be right back to the exact same spot that we are now. So this has to be on top of anything that we do effective July 1st, and it has to come in reoccurring expenses. In my mind, it has to, or I can't support it, I've never supported it, and I never will support it. I do think that we're in as good a position as I've seen this county be in forever. And that's saying quite a lot. But I just want folks to know if we vote for this, we'll be taking a look July 1st at the normal expected increases to employee salaries. So this is money that will be in addition to all of that. Once again, if we're not going into it with that attitude, we are not accomplishing anything other than giving them an early raise. And we won't be accomplishing anything by raising the tables to meet those needs in the future. So, Sonia, what Commissioner Piercy was talking about, I think we need to get busy on that. You probably already are, and I apologize if I'm overstating that, but those salary surveys need to be as up-to-date as they possibly can so we can make those intelligent decisions and use the data that Commissioner Irvin was talking about a little earlier when it comes to making decisions come July 1st. Does all that make sense?
It does. And I wanted to also, something that Commissioner Piercy said, and I just wanted to make sure that maybe I didn't explain that well enough, but I'll use just like the convenience center for an example. We have part-time convenience centers and full-time convenience center attendants. They are on the same hourly rate. So a full-time convenience center makes the same hourly rate as the part-time. So the part-time people are making, if we have a part-time paramedic, that part-time paramedic's making what a full-time paramedic does for their same years of experience. And so they are making the same rate, or, any position that's part-time, if they have a counterpart that's full-time, they are making that same rate based on their years of experience. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that. I didn't know if you knew that or not. That's part of us putting them on the tables to make sure that they get the benefit of that. And we raised the county's minimum wage. We raised that during this last fiscal year. So used to our minimum rate was $10 an hour, and we raised it to a little over $16. So I thought you might want to know that too.
So on a part-time employee's check, what's 4% going to make it an increase for the 2-week period?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The 4% increase on a part-time convenience center attendant, what will be the amount their check will increase on a 2-week scale?
Well, one, it's really based upon what step they're on, but. And I don't have a calculator up here, and I'm not a math whiz.
Be somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 cents.
Son, if you can give me a rate, I can tell you what it'll be.
So let's just say, on average, because we've got several attendants that's been with us, just say 35,873, divide that by 2,080, and then you can.
So that's.
You can divide that by 2,080.
What was the yearly salary? You said that really fast.
Okay.
Well, I just needed the yearly.
Okay.
I just needed the.
But what I was going to tell you is that on the average, they work 25 hours. So our part-time, on average, works between 20 and 25 hours. So we calculate everything at a 25-hour per week rate. and then multiply by 4%, as Mark.
Sonia, wouldn't it be in the neighborhood of 60 cents an hour, somewhere like that?
I was right at 73 cents on my estimate, so yeah, we're
There you
right in
go.
that neighborhood.
Yes, you would be right.
Mr. Johnson, you're recognized.
Okay, Michael, we're going to play hypothetically, okay? If it's going to cost $4,381,362, you say we got $6 million in the kitty somewhere? Is that right? Is that what you're talking about?
So it would cost, that number you read to me, the 4.3 million, that's what it would be for a full year.
Okay, now then, okay, if this 4% goes into effect, okay, hypothetically speaking, can we look that 4% is going to be increased again in July, or are they going to come up with something else? And that's going to, okay, that would be getting about 8%.
This is just me speaking. I'm not going to let Michael say what he's going to say. But if we do I think if we do the market adjustments for the positions that are behind their counterparts, you look at the cost of that, and then you can decide what you can do, what else you can do, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
We could look at least for another 4% in July.
Use your mic, please. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Questions?
What other discussion do we have? Commissioner Irving?
Still have questions. Okay, I'm still concerned. I mean, what we're basically doing is borrowing against growth under the current proposal, this year's growth. If that is projected to be 4 million, somewhere in that range, then we are borrowing 2 million of that growth to give folks a 2% raise. So if the commission decides that borrowing against current growth is the way to go, I'm a bit skeptical, candidly. But if the commission decides to go that route, then that 2% growth is already spoken for. It won't go into fund balance, okay? So there is a fund balance effect. That 2% would not go into fund balance at the end of the day. So our reserves would actually decline, in my opinion. And so at that point, you're starting from a higher expenditure point, okay, because you've already used 2 million. And so your anticipated growth for all the other items that would theoretically have to be paid out of that. And I was just quickly kind of making a list of all the other potential priorities for the commission. And, you could have EMS stuff, you have a new middle school, you have a new high school, you have a new bus contract, you have any number of expenditures that may have an interest in those growth dollars, so to speak. And so at this point, we're making a decision now without, it appears, taking into consideration all these competing interests. And so I'm a little uncertain why, kind of the mechanism for doing this and whether it makes sense or not from a financial perspective. Now, to the proponent's perspective, there may need to be some form of adjustment. What I have not heard is that if you use a hypothetical $60,000 a year employee, if you use that employee, then, okay, what is that? Couple $100 a month? $200 a month, give or take, gross, okay, from which they have deductions. I'm trying to sort out, does that solve the problem. And Sonia, just for the record, is shaking her head no.
Solve it, but
So I'm trying, and
improves it.
it may make a dent in it then, or whatever. I'm trying to assess, okay, having dealt with the fiscal side, now I'm trying to assess, is this proposal, and we may have an issue here, it sounds like we do. I haven't seen the salary study, I haven't seen the data, okay, but I'll take Sonia at her word, Michael at his, certainly Craig at his, in terms of, trying to assess this, but at this point, I have yet to see any data that says this is going to solve the problem. And it may make sense in that context to postpone this a bit till we've had a chance to
Can I talk, Mr. Chairman?
It may make sense to take a look at the problem to see if we can solve it, okay, in a fiscally responsible way, okay? And I'm not saying borrowing a couple million out of growth is irresponsible necessarily, but there are other options, and rather than jump on a resolution tonight, maybe it makes sense to take a look at it, take a look at sources, potential sources. It also may make sense to take a look at, is this the right number? And is this, not only the right number, but to what extent, maybe to what extent is a better way to say it, does this solve the problem? So far, I have no data on any of that hardly. I mean, I understand and I respect Sonia's, view, certainly, I get that. And I respect everything Jeff Phillips, or Chairman Phillips said as well. But I'm just kind of looking at it cold turkey, so to speak, okay, on first blush. There's a lot of other choices potentially out there, okay, that are going to be looking for those growth dollars. This would theoretically lock in half of our growth for the next budget, okay? And if that's the direction the commission wanted to go, so be it. I'm a little skeptical not having data at this point, okay, to take that leap. I do think there's a need. I'm all for paying our folks very well. I really am. But I'm trying to sort, especially, all of our employees, but especially those in law enforcement in those areas. But at this point, I'm kind of skeptical of jumping onto something that, there's almost nothing been provided on it. I'll yield to Commissioner Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Tanya, we have a retention problem. We have a recruiting problem. Yes or no?
Yes,
23, when you did a marketing study, we were behind 10 to 12%, right? So 12 minus 6 is 6. All right, we're proposing a 4%. We have to get in that area just for us to be at market wages. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so I disagree with Mr. Irving. County employees is one of the most important things we have. The most important thing, you want to say schools and all this stuff, yeah, they're very important, but we got to take care of the people who are here. And we're behind 12 to 15%. 12 to 15%, there's your data that you need. We are losing people and we can't recruit people because our wages are so below market. This is us to be able to help with the bleeding. We are bleeding, and this is a way to help them. And it's another way we can help our employees through the tough times where our wages are so low. So that's what I'm trying to say is we got to stop the bleeding. Mr. Chairman, I call a question.
I have a call for the question. All in favor of calling for the question signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Question has been called. We have a motion and a second to give a 4% across the board employee raise with the exemptions noted. Call the roll, Mark.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Piercy.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin.
No.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Sonia, before you run away,
Mr. Chairman, while Sonia's coming back up here, the example is in, like the sheriff's department or those people who report to the sheriff overall, there's 49 positions that are open in the sheriff's department alone. And some of them have been open in January for 2 years that we can't fill. We can't hire those people. Something has to happen. Somehow, some way, we have to stop the bleeding. And I think this is a first step in that process. It's not an end. We'll have to address all of those issues in the upcoming budget. But somehow, some way, we have to stop that bleeding. And just like the booking officers or the detention officers or even SROs, some of those openings are almost 2 years old, and we just can't hire them and can't find them. And I think that's what the real problem here is, that this is a first step in us becoming competitive in the job market. But it's only the first step. There'll have to be a lot of tough decisions made within the next 6 to 7 months as to what we're going to do. And all of those will be somehow, some way, new monies that we need to come up with.
Okay, the reason I called Sonia is I'd like a report, please. And I know you've got enough on your plate, but there's been a lot of discussion about how we're bleeding, and yes, it's true. But I want to point out, and this is why I'm asking her to do what I'm fixing to ask, is I want the percentages that we have given these employees that we keep bleeding, the raises that we have given them over the last, say, 5 years, that may be going back further than we need to. This is something we've been very, I think, diligent about trying to make changes in. I know there's been increase after increase for a lot of our public safety people. And I want to point out what we've actually done in the past. And there was a lot of noise about the deficit that we had. The deficit that we had was where we gave raises to these employees because we were bleeding so much. And that deficit ended up being to cause a tax increase. But I want Sonia to give us those numbers on what we've got over the last few years as far as what we have done.
I was going to say, we get them tonight. I think me and Sonia both have them tonight.
Let's look
But
at it for a minute.
I didn't bring a copy because I just anticipated a question.
If you would, make copies and just
From
get them in everybody's
1996.
mailbox. And if you would, just, I don't want to make this an all-night epistle, but let's.
But this is overall. You're not talking about by position. You're talking about
No,
overall.
not by
Okay,
position.
yeah, I can give you that. I keep up with it every year. So, okay.
Oh, I'd be glad to.
He wasn't using his mic, but he's requested a budget schedule to go into.
And I tell you what I can do as well. I can bring a copy for every commissioner next Thursday as well, just to be sure that everybody has it. Of course, also it'll be posted online as well for anybody that needs it as well.
Okay, Sonia or Michael, whichever one of y'all want to give us those percentages, or.
I have the last three years.
Oh, I've got
If we, let's say 10 minutes.
Okay. How many years you want?
Let's do the 3.
What year? Oh, last 3 years? So 22-23 was the year that we created the law enforcement pay table. We lifted that one by 18% and the county general table by 13%, and then gave steps that they were due. We created lead convenience center full-time positions that year as well. In 23-24, we lifted the tables by 3.25%. We reclassified some positions in the county, and we added a step to both the law enforcement and county general table. 24-25, we lifted both tables by 4.25%, and we reclassified several positions again. And those are the market adjustments that I was talking about to reclassify those. We increased minimum wage to $16.35. I had the wrong amount, and added a step. And we made convenience center attendants full-time, but we still have some part-time. That's what we did in the last 3 years.
The point I was trying to make is this, we're not looking or turning a blind eye on the problems that we've got, and we're doing our best to adjust it. Now, we have approved a 4%, which will go to the full commission if that's approved. But when you get down to it, then you've got to look at what's it going to cost to bring some of these departments up to be more competitive, to allow us to recruit, to allow us to retain. And that's when it starts getting difficult. And that's when we're all going to want those numbers out there in front of us. And, you know, we've got a lot of things to worry about, schools among them. But there's a certain amount you go to, you're looking at doing tax increases. And I want all of you to be aware of that and the public to be aware of that. So that's all I've got. Anybody else want to say anything, Commissioner?
First of all, whenever you have discussions like this, there's a motion and you know, discussion. Commissioner Irving, I do apologize for interrupting you. I did not mean to do that, so bank that one. Sorry.
Apology accepted, no worries.
Thank you, Wayne.
Commissioner, I need to ask, who made the second on calling the question?
I don't know that there was a second call on that.
Requires a second and a 2/3 majority.
Trey says he did the second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we did have a 2/3 on that.
Yeah, it was unanimous. Okay.
All right, any other discussion? We're adjourned.
This is not